right, as we continue to try to process this as well, let's take you down to the courthouse where April Thompson has been covering this for the past week. And April, what was the reaction there in the courtroom?
Well, Greg, the judge has set the stage. He told everybody in the courtroom that no matter what the verdict was going to be, everybody was to be silent. If you felt you could not do that, he asked you that you would go ahead and leave. Well, I was looking at some of the family members of Tyre Nichols when this verdict was announced, and the sister had her eyes closed, and she was just listening to that, and the family of the officers also had their eyes closed. Nobody made any outbursts when they were in the courtroom. After they were released, we heard some of the family members of the officers run out, and they were saying, "Thank you, Jesus, thank you, Jesus." We asked Paul Hagerman, the prosecutor, if we could speak with him. He said he wants to get with the family first before he talks with us, and I'm assuming now he is getting with Tyre Nichols' family, his mom, his father. Other supporters walked out. One lady said, "I have nothing to say, just let me go, let me go." So they are gathering now, trying to process all of this. You have to understand, for this family, this has been especially hard, and they definitely were expecting something else and hoping for something else. The district attorney told us yesterday he was proud of the case that his prosecutors put on, and he thought they had done a good job. They were proud of the closing statements and the rebuttal, and they probably expected something a lot different. So we're waiting to hear from Ravon Wells, Rodney Wells, Tyre Nichols' family, to see what they have to say now. This is it for these officers as far as this. The only case that remains is the civil lawsuit against the city of Memphis, multi-million-dollar lawsuit. But these officers found not guilty on every count, all 7 counts. A lot of people are still trying to process that, and as you can imagine, the family is probably trying to process that about what is next for them. This was their trying to get justice for Tyre. You've heard that line again and again. We want justice for Tyre, and you have to wonder tonight, are they feeling that that justice will ever come?
And April, you were there for every single minute of this trial. You were also there for every minute of the federal trial as well. Completely different outcomes. Any way to analyze how that happened?
Well, this is a different process, too, and I think there was some surprise even at the federal level that they didn't get the outcome that they thought they were going to get. There were only a few convictions, and they were on lesser charges. They were expecting something different in that case, and they didn't get that as well. But one thing I remember Ben Crump and the family talking about when they left court that day was that they had some justice in that they took the officers into custody that evening. They were not going home to their families. That happened, but then a few days later they were released on bond, and so they got a little justice after that. So you still have to look at that. But this was a different case. They still have. We heard a lot of the difference of a lot of the same arguments that they made on the federal side, and some of the same witnesses on the federal side, and but the outcome almost the same, just a little bit different. But you still have to wonder what goes through the families' minds. These officers now, though, their family, like I said, we saw some of them crying. We saw some of them just elated and just being thankful that for these officers, this part of it is over. But for Tyre Nichols' family, you still have to wonder what's to come.
You know, John Perry, the defense attorney for Tadarius Bean, said Tadarius Bean was only doing what he was trained to do. He was only doing his job. Do you think that played a part in this verdict?
And that had to be something that these jurors had to consider, because that was stressed a lot, that this is what these officers were taught. And they had experts get up and talk about that. This is what they were trained to do. This is the training that they received. And you just think about the Scorpion unit and what it was supposed to be. And they were supposed to go out after some of the hardened criminals, and they were supposed to be hard and go out after these people. Now, their encounter with Tyre Nichols turned out to be something totally different. But it goes back to what they were trained to do and what they were supposed to do. Even though the police department came back and said they stepped outside of the bounds of what they were supposed to do, There were experts who came in, people who have trained police officers, worked with police officers, and talking about when you're hands-on, hard hands, soft hands, when you're supposed to use those different type of techniques. And for the average person like you and me, it was probably the first time we'd heard of something like that. And so you see the different levels that these officers have to go through for their training and when they're supposed to use force and when they're supposed to back down. And that's a lot for these jurors to consider, for all three of these officers. But for them to reach this unanimous decision, remember, they had to be unanimous in this. Whatever decision they had, they could go for a lesser charge if they didn't agree unanimously on that first charge. But apparently they didn't have to do that. They were able to come together unanimously and get these 7 counts not guilty on all of them.
Finch used these, I guess they were use of force experts that were there, and each one presented by the defense stated that these actions were reasonable when so many people could look at that video and say that was completely unreasonable. How was the jury reacting during that part of the testimony and the closing argument?
And they were very shocked, and of course they were just trying to...
Well, that was one thing you really couldn't tell by the jury. We know they were taking a lot of notes. We did not hear, the judge said if they had any questions when they went back to the jury room and started looking at the video and the evidence, if they had any questions, they could come back and ask the judge those questions. We did not hear of them going back to the judge. If they did, you know, the media was not alerted to that. So it had to be, maybe they were looking at all of that evidence and the experts that they had. But the prosecution was trying to counter that. Even though you had these experts saying this is the training and this is what they're supposed to do, they also have a duty to, if they see someone that needs assistance, that they're supposed to help that person. And even sometimes the experts couldn't discount that these officers also have a duty to intervene if they see another officer going over the line and what he is supposed to do. And that's what they were banking on. These officers are supposed to be able to check one another. If you see another officer hitting someone or going over the line, overly aggressive, trying to get someone into custody, you have an obligation to reach out and to stop it. And that's what the prosecution said. They were not doing that. There were many instances where these officers could have stopped Emmett Martin from the kicks that he was delivering, could have stopped those baton hits, but they didn't. And they were hoping that the jury would see it that way, but obviously they saw something else.
That the jury could have considered. They had second-degree murder there on the docket, but they could have considered facilitation of second-degree murder. They could have considered voluntary manslaughter. They could have considered aggravated assault. Is there any indication from notes that the jury was sending back or from the bailiff that was coming back that they were asking some of these questions and maybe not only considering these 21 counts, but considering these lesser charges as well, and then just decided to go not guilty on everything?
Well, when they went over the jury instructions, that's what they were telling them. If you cannot reach second-degree murder unanimously, that they did commit this second-degree murder, you can go down and get something lesser. Facilitation of second-degree murder, voluntary manslaughter, facilitation of voluntary manslaughter, maybe aggravated assault, reckless homicide, criminally negligent homicides. Those were all options if they could not reach the second-degree murder verdict. But apparently, they were able to not even have to go to that level. They were able to reach on second degree. We were not given any information that the jurors had any questions that they were giving to the judge and asking for more information. We did not see any bailiffs come back and give the judge anything. We were not even called back into the courtroom after they began deliberations until this verdict. So we don't know what questions they had asked. But just because the fact that they had these other charges, 9 other lesser charges on this first count of second-degree murder that they could have gone to, when they read the verdict, they never mentioned those. They said second-degree murder, not guilty for Detarius B. Second-degree murder, not guilty for Justin Smith. Second-degree murder, not guilty for Demetrius Haley. So they never even had to go to those lesser counts. So that tells you something there. They were able to reach this unanimously.
The jury doesn't have to speak with us. Of course, we'd love to know what was going through their mind and what was happening in that jury room. Is there any indication that we might be hearing from some of these jurors, or are they just going to be heading back to Hamilton County and be done with it?
They let them leave the courtroom immediately, so we did not have an opportunity to even get to them. And, you know, as you are aware, it's up to a juror to decide if they want to speak with us. That will be their opportunity and their decision to make. They left the courtroom before everybody else left. We can only assume that now they're preparing to go back to Hamilton County. Initially, it started out with 16 jurors. They had some alternates. They got rid of those alternates yesterday, and then now it was down to the 12, 8 women, 4 men, all white jury. But yeah, it would be interesting to see what some of them have to say. And these, you know, jurors sometimes do end up speaking to the public. We'll have to be able to find them in Hamilton County, Chattanooga, just to see what some of their thoughts might be on this.
What about some of the other players? Is there any indication at this time that they'll be speaking either from the defense or the prosecution?
Well, when we came out of the courtroom, I asked Paul Hagerman, who is the district attorney, he was the lead prosecutor in this case, if we could have some comments from him. He said he wanted to get with Tyre Nichols' family first. They are on the losing end of this, so I'm sure he has some words that he wants to give to the family as they try to just grapple with what just happened. So he has not come back. We're going to be trying to get to him as well, and possibly some of the attorneys for these officers, and I have not seen any of them come back. They went back this way. We're hoping to be able to get some of them to give their thoughts, because they have to be very pleased tonight with the outcome of this. But as soon as we see some of them come, we will be definitely be trying to get comments from them.
Yeah, they're certainly pleased. The officers are as well, but they are not quite out of the woods yet. They still face they still face sentencing in that federal case. Bring us up to date on that.
Yeah, they still have to be sentenced on the federal side. A lot was still depending on what happened here on the state side. The Judge Norris, over on the federal side, said he was going to wait on their sentencing till all of this played out. And so now we're going to be looking at what that is. But some of the most serious counts over there, they were not convicted on. So you have to wonder what their sentence will be. And that is totally at the judge's discretion on what he sentences over there. The highest sentence they could have gotten with this second-degree murder count was 15 to 25 years. And all of the other counts were lesser, 8 to 12 and 1 to 2 years on the different counts. But they don't have to worry about that on this side now. It's just going over to the federal side for the sentencing there.
And we know that Tyre Nichols' mother had filed a civil lawsuit against the city of Memphis. Ben Crump representing her. Any indication we'll be hearing from either of them today?
I have not seen Ben Crump today. He was here a few days ago, and we thought that he would be coming back, and he very well may be on his way back or coming back to town. I have not seen him or Anthony Romanucci, who is the other attorney on the civil side. But when he was here, they both did speak with us. And when I talked with Anthony Romanucci earlier this week, I asked him about that civil case. I said, what is the next on that, and when will that be coming up? And he said it would be next summer. So it'll be sometime in June of next summer. They're still working that, and you know there have been a lot of motions filed in that case. Police Chief C.J. Davis tried to get her name removed from that case, and the city going back and forth with the family over records that should be released, and a lot of motions filed in that case, so it still has to be played out. But that is a multi-million-dollar case, and you've heard that if the city actually has to pay it, the city's saying that would bankrupt the city. So a lot still to happen in that case, but that's the last one that's to play out as of now.
All right, so certainly this is one of the pieces of the puzzle. It's not quite complete yet. Still a lot more to happen. We'll let you get out and do some more reporting, try to gather some more information as well. In the meantime, if you are just now joining us, we want to bring you up to speed. Some stunning development now from the criminal courthouse in downtown Memphis, where the jury in the trial against 3 former Memphis police officers have found all 3 officers not guilty on all 21 counts.